Check, check. 1, 2, 3. We are about to go live. Awesome. And we will hit live in a second. All right. Perfect. Okay, we're going to go live in 3, 2, 1. We should be live any second. All right. I think we are live, team. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Just give me 1 second here while we get some admin stuff going. If you are here with us live, will you please do me a favor and let me know in the chat? Please let me know in the chat if you are live. Check, check. Okay, I see at least we got 2 with us right now. Just getting some admin stuff going here. Sweet. All right, guys, welcome. I know there is a ton of crazy weather stuff going on in the world. So wherever you are, I really, really hope you are safe. Please be careful. Do what you got to do. If you're in California, I'm sorry. Good luck. I know one of our in the community, Ben, I hope you're good, man. If you are out in where a bunch of the storms came in, the snowstorms, I know we're getting some here in Dallas that not as crazy as what people got out east, but if you're around, good luck, stay safe. So with that, guys, let's kick off here in just a second. I'm seeing who's live here with us. I see we got 10 so far. James, what's up? Dylan, what's up? Roman, what's up? Guys, if you're here with us live, let me know in the chat. Would love to see who is with us. Awesome. Okay, Yasir, what's up, dude? Good to see you, man. Sweet. While those trickle in, everybody, we are talking all things double closing today. So I have a ton of notes. I am going to be looking at them periodically. I've got like 6 pages of typed up notes. So I want to make sure I answer as many questions as I can. I see a bunch more people. Sean, what's up, dude? Good to see you. Aaron, good to see you, man. Brian, what's up? Arturo here will stay as long as possible. This is being recorded, guys. This isn't Facebook, so you will have access to this. We'll get this on YouTube in the next week as well, so you guys have it. I know this is a topic people are really passionate about, trying to improve on. So I will do Q&A at the end. I'm going to try to keep this under 90 minutes. I might be able to fit it into an hour, but I'm not sure because I really want to get into some details. I didn't prepare a big slide deck for this, so unfortunately it's going to be a talking head video, but I'm going to try to keep it fun and engaging with my hands and my fidget spinner, okay? So, all right, guys, let's go ahead. Let's get kicked off. What's up, Vlad? Good to see you. I know we're 3 minutes in. If you've been tuning in, we got almost 20 people here with us. I want to make sure you guys get some good value out of this. So with that, loose agenda for today. Okay, loose agenda for today. First, I'm just going to start with the basics, guys. You're going to hear some stuff for the first time. You're going to get some nuggets out of this you won't get other places, okay? So first, I'm going to define what a double close is, talk about why we should do them at all. All right. Next, I'm going to talk about the 3 roadblocks that I see people face when they're trying to do their first double close. Okay. And how to overcome them. I'll have some resources here for you. And last, I'm going to go through just the operations of actually getting the deals done, talking to title companies, working with buyer agents, etc. Okay. And then stay till the end if you can, because I've actually got a really big announcement of some stuff we're doing to work with you guys, right? I want this to be as accessible and possible to everybody. So in the least, you'll get some good free training. I do have some resources for folks to have. At most, hopefully you're able to start doing double closings here in 2025. So with that, I'm going to get kicked off. Ewan, good to see you, man. Jackson, what's up, dude? So first, guys, I want to get started off. Let's talk about what is a double closing, okay? When I'm talking about double closings, I'm simply just saying that we're getting a property under contract with the intent to find a buyer and then conduct 2 closings, one for the acquisition, one for me buying the property, and one for the disposition, one for me selling the property. So the reason it's called a double close is because a normal closing would be 1 transaction, and I'm gonna double it and give it to the next guy for 2 transactions. Okay, so double close. You hear people use double close and assignments kind of synonymously. I'm just gonna walk through a couple of quick differences between the two. They both work. There's some benefits to each one. The first is just number of transactions. With an assignment, you have 1 transaction, right? Just 1 closing, same transaction for a buy and a sell. 1 set of HUDs that you're dealing with from title. A double closing, you've got 2, right? With closing costs, because there are 2 closings in a double closing, you do have to pay those twice, whereas with an assignment, it's just 1. And then just HUD transparency. So with an assignment, okay, your assignment fee is listed as a line item, right? That's like one of the line items since it is 1 transaction. So your seller sees that fee, your buyer sees that fee. And sometimes people are weird about us making money. I hate it. I don't know why, but they are. Okay. And that's why we really like double closes, because they see what we're paying on this transaction. They see what we're selling, the end buyer sees what we're selling it for, what we're getting on that transaction. So just having that separation just allows for easier communication, less deals fall apart, et cetera, et cetera. Carl says, is a double close synonymous with simultaneous close? Yeah, I've heard it, called a couple different things. Simultaneous close, same day close, all kinds of stuff. Devin, good to see you, man. Now, guys, like I said, we're going to start with some of the basics. I promise this will get more advanced as the training goes on. So I'd ask that you stay on for a good chunk of it. I see we got 26 live with us. Welcome, guys. This is crazy. Sweet. So why double close at all? Why even use this as a tool in the tool belt? Why should I do this? The cool thing about double closings is it allows you to monetize leads that you wouldn't have been able to do business with. Okay. So think about it like this. When you offer 20 cents on the dollar, you're going to be able to get less deals and less contracts than you would if you offer 50 cents on the dollar, right? Well, do you think you'd be able to get more contracts if you offered 60 cents, if you offered 65, if you offered 70, if you offered 100? Absolutely, right? And so my point here today is that you can do more deals if you offer more money. And then you're like, well, Ajay, if I'm offering more money, dude, it doesn't make sense for me to buy a lot of this stuff. I'm floating cash. Exactly. And so the way for us to de-risk that is to find a buyer on the other end, and it eliminates all of our capital risk for the deal aside from some soft costs, okay? Aside from some soft costs. So basically, what that means is you are able to not have any capital risk in the deal. You're not fronting any money. You don't need a funder's money. You don't need a JV deals, which changes profit splits, right? You don't need to just do double closings with deals that aren't a double. I think, again, if you can eliminate your capital risk on a lot of those other deals, you can still do super high lucrative, deals that could have been flips as double closes. I know other people that have, they work, right? But the whole point here is why should you do it? It's so you can do more deals, right? With the same marketing spend. I think a marketing metric we look at frequently is ROAS, it's called that because it's ROAS is the acronym, which stands for return on ad spend, right? How much money am I getting back for every dollar I put into my marketing spend, my ad spend, right? And a quick way to increase your ad spend is to be able to do more business with more of your leads, right? You can do more business if you do double closings. It's that simple, okay? So first thing I want to chat about is the 3 variables of double closing. And then we're going to get into some juicier stuff here, I promise. So again, if you guys have been doing tons of double closings, let's just polish on some fundamentals for the first 5 to 10 minutes. And then I promise we'll get into some more fun meat. Okay. So 3 variables of double closing. The first one, pretty obvious, is timeline. Okay. First one is timeline. And when I'm thinking about timeline on a double closing, here's the reality is the more time I have to market the property, the higher the chances are of me getting an offer. And let's play this on the opposite side of the spectrum. Okay. So let's say you only had 1 day to find a buyer for a property. Do you think you could? Maybe, maybe not, depending on your buyers lists, depending on the product, right? Or depending on your discount. Okay. So if a property is worth $100,000 and let's say you can buy it for $1,000, do you think you could find a buyer and make money within a day? Definitely. I could easily find a buyer that would pick this thing up and close on it in a day for 5 grand, for 10 grand, maybe for 20, right? That's one day. So the point of that exercise is to make you think, listen, yeah, I'm paying more on this. It also means I probably need more time for a buyer. Not always, guys. Sometimes double closings are awesome. I talk about this with my friend Danny Benjamin. The best ones are one that I'll talk about later, where you get it under contract, you throw it up on the MLS. 3 days in, you get a cash offer, bada bing, bada boom, easy. You get them done. They're not all like that, right? So as we're thinking about this philosophically, and we're working through the first of these 3 variables, which is timeline, you got to think about why does this matter, and how do I get this to serve me? Okay, so the more time I have, more often you'll get an offer that's higher if you get more time, right? It's the simple physics of it, so to speak, right? Now, in terms of being realistic, you're gonna ask, okay, Ajay, this is great, this is hypothetical. How long should I be locking this stuff up for? Guys, I would tell you on a double close, you're always gonna want a minimum of 90 days. Okay, a minimum of 90 days on your contract. The only exception would be if you're slinging infill lots in areas like Texas, like Florida, like North Carolina, where maybe you can find a buyer a lot faster and you only need 45, but you need to make sure your buyer doesn't need more than 30 days DD. So it gets crazy. But Patricia, hey, congrats. You just got done with your first ever double closing. Devin's asking, this is a good question, if title companies ever offer a bit of a break on fees for double closes. All right, here's a quick tip for everybody. Regardless of if you're doing double closings or not, I'm going to save you some money right now. Do you guys want to save money? If you want to save money, let me know in the comments. I'll give you a quick little thing to save some money out of Devin's question. I need to see at least one yes, and then I'll give you guys some fun ways to save money. Does nobody want to save money? I'm not seeing it. Drop a yes in the comment if you want a quick tip on how to save some money, guys, on a deal. John Schmidt. Thank you, John. John hit me with a yes. Carl hit me with a yes. Okay, awesome. So when you are doing a double closing, or if you're just doing repeat business with a title company, ask them, hey, can you give me an investor discount? That's it. Okay. Don't make it complicated. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. Literally, if you've done at least one transaction with your title company, ask them, hey, can you give us an investor discount? If the answer is no, fine, you didn't get a discount, but usually the answer is yes. So we almost every single time get a yes. The only times we've ever gotten a no is if we haven't actually completed a transaction with the title company and we're already asking. But if you're doing a double close, just ask, hey, since we're doing 2 closings with you guys, would you be able to give us a discount? You're gonna get a couple $100 off your settlement statement or your settlement line item probably. And sorry guys, my allergies are bad, so I mentioned my nose a bit. Apologies. Anyways, okay. I want a minimum. We're going to drill back down on timeline. I'm talking about the 3 variables of double closing, and then we're going to talk about the 3 roadblocks. Okay. So 3 variables. First one's timeline. I want at least 90 days, right? I want you to think about a couple of pieces here. The first one is like, guys, you got to get photos to get your listing up, right? So that's going to take you 5 days. You get a couple photos off droners, you get it up on a flat fee MLS service or even with a realtor. Now you've got 85 days left in your contract. Okay. Well, now let's think about the other end of the spectrum, right? A buyer is going to submit a contract. They're going to want 21 to 45 days to close on the property. That's the range we see most common. 21 is like usually the fastest for most buyers. You can get them faster, but not a lot of times, right? So 21 on the fast end, 45 on the slow end, okay? And so if I've got a minimum of 90 days, I know 5 are going to go to photos and listing. I know 21 to 45 are going to go once I've got an offer to get to the closing table. Well, that leaves in a best case scenario, right? Whatever, 85 minus 21. Who wants to do that math for me? 85 minus 21 leaves me with 64 days left. Okay. So I've got like just over 60 days to actually market my property. Now that's having leads come in, having people walk properties. Anybody that's been doing this business for any amount of time knows, well, hey, if somebody's going to be walking the property, they need time to get scheduled to go out there, right? And so like there's time in all of this, guys. So I need a minimum of 90 days because I'm not going to move a property in 20 days. It's a rural tract in the middle of nowhere where there's not a lot of buyers in 3 days. Sometimes it happens. I'm not going to bank on it, right? So I need some time here, right? What I like to say is I recommend people start with 180 days in your pitch. And I know you're thinking, gosh, who's going to let me lock it up for 180 days? A lot more people than you think. And if they give you pushback, we'll talk through some objection training in a little bit. We'll talk through some pushback sellers give later on in this conversation when I get to one of the 3 roadblocks. But holistically speaking, in sales, guys, when you make an offer and you start with the most expensive thing, which in this case is time, and it's 180 days, you can downsell if they say no, but it's really hard to work back up. It's really hard to work back up if you ask for 90 days and then they're only giving you and you need 120, right? So that's all some quick stuff on timeline, just as you guys are thinking through double closes. Number 2, the second variable when I'm thinking about double closing is the ability to list / access. If you're talking to a conventional house guy, they'll tell you like access is that second piece. It doesn't matter as much because we don't have houses that people need to like enter into, but you do want to check, hey, can I have people walking the property? You guys aren't out there. If it's a hunting property, make sure it's not hunting season and people are actively out there. I don't need someone getting shot because of us. So just be careful, be safe. But hey, can I market the property? Can I get out there? What language do you have in your contract? What language do you have in your conversation? We're going to talk about all of that later on. I just want you to recognize the second variable in being able to double close is the ability to list the property and have access to the property. Okay, so those are your A's. The third variable, and this one is super obvious, right? This is pretty much the biggest one, is price. The deeper your discount is, the more likely you are to find a buyer with margin. Okay, the deeper the discount, the more likely you are to find a buyer with your margin, right? Because here's the thing is you can always offer to pay more if you get access and you get more time, right? If somebody's really stubborn at a price of 70% of market value, I can't flip with those margins. I just can't. It just doesn't make sense with the way the money works in our business. And so, hey, well, we'll talk through some pitches that I'll do to get somebody to say yes after they're pretty stubborn on price. But generally speaking, if I know they're stuck there, it's okay. Well, if you need this, well, then I'm going to need time. I'm going to need access, right? And so we'll talk through what that sounds like in a real conversation. But generally speaking, like, hey, with price, you can offer to pay more if they give you more access and time, if they give you more of the first 2 variables. All right. Now, overall, I want to see at least 20 grand margin net on my double closes. Okay. So here's just some regular rules of thumb for people that I like to say is if you're just getting started in double closing, you're like, how do I factor in some of the equations? I've got a calculator we use that I can give away if people want it. If anybody comments calculator, I'll make a note to put that in the school community and give it to somebody. If you guys don't want it, no problem. If I see it in the comments, awesome. But I would just say, I can, generally speaking, I want 20 grand of margin. After I calculate seeing 2 sets of fees. Okay. So 2 sets of transaction fees, buyer, title fee on the acquisition side, title fee on the dispo side, and then a 3% buyer agent fee. So if I think I'm going to sell it for 100 grand, I'm going to say 1,000 for both sides of closing costs. I'm going to see, a 3% fee to an agent. So that's, 5 grand altogether, right? 3 grand plus 1 plus 1 is 5. Now we're at 95. If I want to see a 20 grand margin at a minimum, I need to be at least 75,000 bucks, right? That's the max I can pay so that I can actually make some money on the deal. Okay, sweet. A bunch of people have commented calculator. Hey, what's up, Kieran? Good to see you, brother. Hopefully CG was good, man. It's good to see him. It's a good friend of mine from the Collective Genius Network. Sweet. So generally speaking, an easy rule of thumb for most people is if you can get a deal at like 65% of market value, it's probably still a good double close deal as long as you're buying stuff over like 60, 70,000 bucks. Again, I want to see a 20K margin, right? There's some easy stuff for you. I'll post that calculator somewhere so you guys can get that, right? Now, one last consideration with price, and then I'll move into the 3 roadblocks here in a second. One quick consideration with price is, guys, I'm able to move properties fast if I can list the property at 80 to 85% of market value. And when I say fast, I mean like within 30 days, more or less. We just did this. We had this really cool deal that if people want, I'll do a case study on it. If you're interested, and this is super helpful for me. I'm sorry I keep asking you to type stuff in, but comment case study if you want to see it. We did a deal where we found a subdivide property in Oklahoma on market. We got the seller to give us permission to market and sell the property as child parcels before we bought it for 3 months. And then we actually, so we took 160 acres, we cut it up into 12 tracks, and we double closed on 6 of those child parcels the same day we bought the property. And we've got the rest of it under contract to be sold this month. And part of the reason we were able to do that is we price dropped aggressively on this property. And so we were priced at about 80 to 85% of what we thought was the real market value on this. And so we were able to sell it all within 4 months of getting it under contract, and that we had to get a survey done and photos and realtors involved, and it was pretty crazy overall. But we're going to end up, the whole deal is going to net just under 200 grand with very little risk in it. Right. We had the most active comps in the area. We already had a ton of buyers lined up before we even sold the property. So overall risk pretty low. So, okay, I see a ton of people commented case study. So I'll put some stuff together and share how we did that deal in a future training. I don't know when I'm going to do that yet, but the reason I'm sharing that example is because we saw it firsthand, right? We can move a property quick in today's market if we price drop down to 80 to 85% of market value. And it wasn't just one property, right? This was a cool subdivide deal where you could argue is almost more difficult to move identical inventory in an area. And we sold it all pretty much within a month, right? So just something to think about, right? So the deeper my discount is on the acquisition, the faster I can move it on the dispo and the more certainty I can move forward and just get my money in and out, right? And something I'll talk about later is an expression I first heard from one of my buddy, Meir Shemtov, if you guys know him, really smart land investor, super sharp guy, really cool guy. And I first heard this from him, the whole sell now, cry later philosophy, right? With wholesale deals, you've got to be okay selling your deal for a lot less money than you underwrote it for. Make your quick 15, 20, 30 grand margin and move on to the next one. It's okay. It's okay. As long as you're making a profit on those deals, it's not a bad gig. So you just want certainty. And whenever you've got an offer that's profitable, you have some level of certainty. So sell it, cry later about how much money you could have made. Okay, sweet. I see a ton of people have commented with case studies, so I will be sure to bring some stuff in. So, okay, I am about to get into the 3 roadblocks that I see investors struggle with, and then talk through some ways I overcome that. Before I do, guys, so far, I know we're about 20 minutes into this. I see over 30 people on live with us, which is really cool. Will you guys just comment a yes if this has been valuable so far? I want to make sure I'm getting into stuff that people actually want to hear. Will you drop a yes? Nobody drop a no. It'll hurt my feelings. But I do want to see, is this valuable so far? We're about to get into the actual roadblocks I see with some people. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Ewan. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. So 3 roadblocks I see with investors when they are struggling to get into double closings. Okay. I like P's. I like alliteration, guys. I'm like a 6th grade teacher at heart. And so I love alliteration and assonance and things that help things stick in the mind. Okay, I'm getting a bunch of yeses. That makes me feel really good. So I'm going to keep hitting this really hard then, and I'm going to take it deep. I know some of this stuff is dry if you've been doing this stuff for a long time, but bear with me because I know a lot of people in the community need this. So 3 roadblocks I see when people are attempting double closings. The first one is the pitch. Okay, the pitch. What do I say to the seller? How am I saying the words I need to say to the seller to get them to agree to this? I get questions all the time of how transparent should I be, right? All that type of stuff. So the pitch. The second one is the paperwork. Okay, what paperwork do I need to get this deal done? So you have the pitch, you have the paperwork, and guys, I would write some of this down if you're not taking notes. The pitch, how do I say this to the seller? The paperwork, what in writing do we need for this to be good and kosher? And the placement. Where do I put this deal to get it listed and sold in time? Devin said, perfect. I learned like a 6th grade student. Okay, sweet, Devin. Well, then we are going to be good friends, my friend. So guys, pitch, paperwork, placement, right? How do I say something to the seller to get them to agree? How do I do the paperwork so I can actually list the property? Where do I put it to actually get it sold, right? And 2 and 3 go hand in hand, but we're going to dive into what makes sense here, okay? So, awesome. First, I'm going to, Zach, thanks, brother. Good to see you, man. Pitch, paper, and placement. I'm not sure if you meant to spell paper like that, but I love it. Okay. So first, let's talk about the pitch. Okay, let's talk about the pitch. You guys, I'm going to switch my desk to standing here. So a lot of you get tripped up on what to say when you're trying to double close. I'm going to tell you this, okay? If you learn nothing from this training, if you learn literally nothing from what we talk about today, the easiest way to start getting going with your pitch is just to be super honest, okay? Super honest. And I know that sounds really basic and you're like, bro, what does that mean? Explain it to the seller how you might explain it to a buddy or a friend. Or if you were talking to like an uncle at Thanksgiving and they're like, wait, so what are you doing with the property? You're like, oh, well, basically, like, man, I understand how to market properties really well. And so, my goal is to find a buyer, blah, blah, blah. Like, just explain it like normal. We're going to talk through a little bit of scripting here in a second. So I don't want to get too deep in that. But my encouragement to everybody is just like have a normal conversation, because authenticity shows. Okay. Authenticity shows. And honestly, like if you end up making a pitch and you feel shady about it, like guys, it's not worth it. One of my favorite expressions is, if it costs you your peace, it costs too much. Okay. If it costs you your peace, it costs too much. So on the pitch, there's a few different ways that I can explain to the seller what I'm doing, right? Let's go through basically 3 different tiers of that. But before we do any of that, I want to say I do 2 big things before I even go into a double close pitch. Okay. The first one is basically time anchoring. Okay. Time anchoring. And what I mean by that is, in my sales script, right? And if you haven't checked out my script, guys, I've got a 7-page script in our free school community, Land Closers Academy. But in my script, I have a section where all of us do it, right? Hey, just so you know, this will be the easiest transaction of your life. We cover all closing costs. We can do this. We can do that. I'm going to make your dreams come true, baby. Let's go. When you're doing all that stuff, right? We drop in there, and typically we close all our properties within, our team says 90 days, right? We say typically we close our properties within 90 days. It plants a seed for them. Okay. It plants a seed where the contract's just going to have a de facto 90 days. So before we even talk price, we bring that up. Then we ask them, hey, do you have any questions about that? So you've heard of price anchoring, right? Where we say invest, and we shift blame when we do that, and how I teach it. Investors are paying between X and Y range in the area, right? Well, we also like to time anchor, right? Guys, these concepts in sales are universal, okay? So anchoring, it's the same thing. It's the same concept. We're just doing it with time. What's another piece we could get objection on? It's time. Sweet. Let's time anchor, okay? Number 2 is I like to ask some leading questions. So before we get into our double close pitch, first, I'm doing some anchoring. Second, I'm getting into some leading questions that make them want to work with me. And here's what I mean, okay? Here's what I mean is the first one is I'm going to isolate price, right? Ideally, we don't make a double close pitch until we have isolated price, okay? And here's what I mean by that is, okay, just so I understand here, Zach, your rock bottom price here is $60,000. Zach says yes. I say, okay. So if I was able to get you $60,000, would there be anything preventing us from working together? Zach's going to say, no, man, that's all I care about is the price. I'm like, okay, so price is a big deal to you. Yep. So if I could work with my team and we could find a way to get you that offer, would there be anything stopping us from working together? He's going to say no. And guys, yes, I'm doing this like 3 times. It's a little annoying, but the point is I need the seller to acknowledge, yep, it's price. Price is the only thing. Like, okay, sick. Because remember, we need to make people think ideas are their own. We want people to have brand continuity. They need to have that in their own brains. And so what we do is we start with that. Once we get price isolated, we ask a leading question of, hey, and Zach, remind me, are you guys in any kind of a rush to sell your property? Right? And boom, this is a really powerful question. Here's why I love it is, guys, with our sellers, you're like, hey, are you in a rush to sell the property? Oh, no, I can hold it forever, right? Oh, the taxes on it are $60 a year, not a big deal, right? Because most of our sellers aren't super time motivated. I don't know why we keep mentioning to them that we can close in 30 days, because most of them don't care. They don't give a crap, right? So that's how I lead before I go into my actual double close pitch, which sounds different depending on how I want to do it. Okay. So I like to say there's 3 tiers of that double close pitch. We're going to talk through those 3 tiers. I'm going to play with a little bit of scripting, and then we're going to get into some common objections here. Okay. And this is all just the pitch. We still haven't gotten to the paperwork or the placement yet. This training's a little bit dense. I'm sorry. There's so many pieces to cover in this, but I got a ton of great questions from y'all, and I want to make sure I address them all in this time. So let me just take a sip here and we'll keep jumping. Okay. So 3 tiers of the pitch, 3 tiers of the pitch. First one. Okay. This one is not my favorite, and it is, don't tell them at all. Okay. Don't tell them at all. I don't do that one. That's kind of shady, right? And that's just where you basically lock it up with the full intention of double closing. You sneak some language into an agreement, and you get it up, right? We've done it. I'm not going to pretend like we've never done that before, but it is something that I do not recommend. And so, realistically, a majority of sellers are never going to see the listings. Some will. And when they do, they're not going to be super happy. We had a situation, it was probably a year and a half ago now, where we had a seller reach out to us. We got a deal done, and we got the contract signed. And so, once we got the contract signed, we were in Alabama. We started double closing the property. We listed it. And this guy, I think a neighbor saw it because we had people going out there or something. He didn't know what we were doing. But he gave us a call and was freaking out because I think we were under contract at 60. We had it listed at 99. And he was like, oh my God, tell me why you're trying to list this at 99, blah, 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 blah. And just like freaked out, sent us a bunch of angry text messages, a little bit of profanity in them. And so I personally call him back, right? My acquisitions manager will lock it up. I call him back. I'm going to change his name for the purpose of this story. I'm going to call him Bobby. And I call him back and I say, hey, Bobby, listen, man, I just want to touch base on this. It sounds like there was a miscommunication here. And he was like, well, yeah, you guys have my property listed at $100,000 and you're buying it from me for 60. I was like, hey, you're totally right here, Bobby. And let me just say, I'm an owner of this company and I take full responsibility for the lack of communication here. The first thing I want you to understand is, we had no intention of doing anything without your permission. If you look at our agreement in section 7, we actually outline a clause that does give us the permission to market the property. Now, Bobby, I will tell you, when we send that over, we're supposed to also explain that that's an option, so you're not surprised like you are here. And I see that we failed you, and I really apologize for that. This is totally our fault. We did a terrible job communicating with you. You probably think we're like dirtbags, right? And initially, he backs off because I'm apologetic. And guys, their biggest fear in that is they're getting scammed, right? Their biggest fear is they're getting scammed, and so I need to help them understand, dude, you're not getting scammed, right? We're good. But also I take ownership. It's my fault. Like, hey, but this is something you agreed to. It's in writing. And every single time I've had to do that, which I think is only 2, maybe 3, the seller backs off. They're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And I'm like, hey, this doesn't change anything for you. It just, basically just affects our ability to market. We should still be set to close in X amount of time. He's like, okay, got it. Cool. Off the phone, back on track. Nothing changed, right? So I think that was a question I know Blake had was, what do you do if you can't sell a property or seller sees it and gets mad? That's what we've done when we haven't told them in the past. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, the second way to pitch is to be gray about what you do. And when I say gray, I don't mean like shady. I more so mean I'm not going to tell the seller, hey, Zach, yeah, man, we're going to throw it up on Zillow and see if we find a buyer so I can make about 15 G's on this. How's that sound? Right? Like when I say be transparent, I don't quite mean like that. Right. But I'm going to tell them, hey, I might market this thing. And so typically here's how I do that. Right. And here's my pitch. And here's what I've got in the script even is, hey, just so you understand, in this time, Zach, we've gotten really good at buying property. We've also gotten really good at selling property. I've sold over 200 properties in the past couple of years of running this business. We've been doing this for about a half a decade. So in that time, for us to be able to get you that price, typically we do one of a couple of things. We're going to partner with some folks in the area. That includes some builders, might include some realtors. We might even leverage some platforms like the multiple listing service. This doesn't change anything for you, man. The only thing is our closing date is now going to be XYZ, which doesn't matter because you mentioned you weren't in a rush. And it just gives us the ability to show it to some potential partners and some retail investors. But you know what? In 90 days or 120 days or 180 days, title company is going to ask you wire or check. What questions can I answer? Right? Boom. And honestly, like the biggest thing that they need to understand is they don't need to do any more work. They're still going to get the money they're going to get. And hey, I might be marketing this sucker. Right. But what I want to do there is I want to establish some level of authority. Let them know I've done this a bunch. I coach Josh Pierce's team and gosh, they have a sick sales cycle. And I hope it's okay that I share this, Josh, if you see this, but I hear on average they sell a property in 56 days. So I tell them use that in your double close pitch. Hey, typically, I know we have 90 days in the agreement, but typically in the past, on average, we get that done in about 56 days. So when you talk on past experience, it gives you a level of authority, because what you don't want to hit is a certainty objection where all of a sudden they're like, wait, are you even going to close on this? Right? So are you going to be able to finish this out? Are you going to be able to get this done? So those are some things that I'd be thinking through, right? That's number two. That's our second way to pitch, which is, I don't know if I want to say be gray, but just mention, hey, here's a couple of different things that we do, right? The third one is to be super explicit on exactly what you're doing, right? Now, guys, again, I'm just going to reiterate, to not get a certainty-based objection, it's really, really important that, yeah, there's a chance you might not find a buyer, but you don't want to hammer it super hard, okay? If you hammer it super hard, they're just not going to work with you because they're not going to think you can get this done. I don't want to work with anybody. Like if a loan officer was calling me and he was like, yeah, dude, like I've gotten loans done in the past, I'm going to shop this around in the market and hopefully we can find you something. I'm like, I don't know if I'm giving you my social, dog, So just think about that. Now, if you want to be super explicit, just, hey man, we've built up some really strong ways to move properties, and I am going to try to move the mountains to get this property sold. I can tell you every time I do this, I've got a majority of success, and the only time I don't get them done is XYZ. So I'm going to do everything I can. There's a very high likelihood we get this thing to the finish line, whatever. But make sure you establish a level of certainty and authority. Let them know your efforts are going to be, pretty gangbusters. And you tell them, right? Hey, especially if you're doing like option agreements. So the reason we do an option agreement is because it gives us the option to purchase the property at this price. We're going to float it around to a couple of partners. We're going to market this explicitly on a couple, sites. You might see it somewhere. You might see a sign in it. And that just allows us to be able to pay more for the property. So, you're going to see it marketed here. Have any issues with that, right? As long as you're getting the number we agreed to today. Is there anything wrong with that? You did mention price was the only thing that stopped you, and this was what you were looking for, right? So you can be a little bit more explicit with it and have that conversation. Bada bing, bada boom. Those are the three tiers of that pitch, okay? Now, the two most common objections I get when pitching double closing are why so long, okay? And guys, if you've been following me, when we're talking about objections, I like to acknowledge them, right? And I like to reaffirm identity with the seller on the objection if I can. Okay. And here's what I mean by that. Here's an example is if my good friend Mickey, who's tuned in, hits me up and says, yo, dude, why does this take so long? I'm gonna say, hey, great question, Mickey. A lot of the folks we work with are always curious about whether we can close faster. So what I've done there is I've told them, hey, you are just like all the people I do business with, right? And it reaffirms their identity. Hey, a lot of the folks we work with are curious about whether we can close faster. And sometimes we can, right? Our average is 56 days if I'm really good, like Josh. And so when we're the only partner involved in the deal, we're able to close the fastest, but we tend to have some stricter price ranges on, what we can do by ourselves. For us to get you that price, we need more time so that our buying partners have time to do their own due diligence too. And just to confirm, you did mention you weren't in any kind of rush to sell your property, right? And see, what I'm doing there too is I'm asking a question at the end, because whoever asks questions, they're in control of the conversation. So I need to be driving that conversation. So I acknowledge the objection. I explain why, right? And then I finish off with a, hey, you weren't in a rush though, right? And they're like, well, no, sweet, bada bing, bada boom, right? Next one is like, what if you back out? Now I'm screwed. Okay. And there's two different ways to do that. The first one is, just, hey, I'm not going to back out unless something's wrong with the property, is what we like to say. So, hey, most sellers we work with, that's the same thing. It makes you smart for thinking ahead. I will tell you the only reason we back out of transactions is because either something's wrong with the property physically, or there's something comes back funky in the title work. Do you know of any issues with the property legally or physically? Right? Again, see how I ask a question at the end and I'm basically like, hey, the only reason I'm backing out is because something's wrong with this sucker. Or if I'm way off on price, but that typically is because something's wrong with the sucker. So something else you can do is offer them some EMD. I know we've chatted with Andy Rouse about that at length of just, hey, a lot of folks have the question. That's why we started adding, additional earnest money. So after 30 days, even if we do back out, you still get $1,000 at the end of this. That way you're making something either way. But I wouldn't be too worried because typically we only back out of contracts if there's something wrong with it, right? Physically or with the title work. Do you know of anything that's wrong with it? Bada bing, bada boom, right? And I'm gonna keep saying that just like that. Bada bing, bada boom. Shoo-wee. Okay, that is everything with the pitch that I've got today. That's just talking to my sellers, having a conversation with here's how I pitch double closes, here are the objections I get, here's different ways I can do that. That's number one. Number two for P is the paperwork. Okay. Now I do need to say this because people hate us internet teachers. And so I am not an attorney. This is not legal advice. Past performance cannot guarantee future results. I am not making any financial guarantees on anything anybody does in this training. I am just speaking off of my experience. Okay. It is said. I'm sorry, guys. So for the paperwork, again, not legal advice. Typically, this only matters if we're thinking about marketing the property on the MLS, on the multiple listing service. You want it on Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, whatever, right? So let's focus on that because some of our other marketing platforms, which we'll get to here in a little bit, land.com, Facebook Marketplace, you don't really need any paperwork to be able to submit to those. You just need Facebook accounts and land.com accounts. So, you get your photos, you list them, whatever. With the paperwork, first and foremost, there's 3 tiers. I like to say 3 tiers of clauses or paperwork you can get signed to get your properties listed on the MLS. Okay. Your first one is just like a regular assignment and marketing clause, which is, seller has the explicit right to market and sell property on any and all marketing platforms, including but not limited to, multiple listing services included in there. That's just an assignment marketing clause. It's a clause you just have as like section 8 in your contract or whatever. And that's gotten us pretty far, right? But that's like level 1. That's like we're beta. We're just getting started. That's not going to work everywhere. The restrictions actually are getting more and more intense over time. And so that's working in less places as we've been doing this. I know when we started, we could do that in pretty much everywhere we worked except for like Colorado. And now it's gotten a little bit more tricky. So the second tier then is attorney in fact. And that is like basically a full-on second document that is like a power of attorney. But I always say it's like a power of attorney light. Like if you drink beer, it's like light beer, it's a power of attorney light. The key difference between an attorney in fact and a power of attorney is an attorney in fact document does not require a notary seal. So the cool thing about attorney in fact is it's more intense than an assignment marketing clause. It's typically its own page or it's a pretty thick paragraph in your paperwork, but it does not require a notary legally, which is, a big piece of friction in a sales process, right? If I have to go get a notary, now do we do this online? Do I order a mobile notary to go there? Like, what do we need to do to get this thing done? It adds more friction versus attorney in facts. You can get e-signed. To my knowledge, I'm not an attorney. This isn't legal advice, right? But that's tier 2. Tier 3 then, as you can imagine, is power of attorney, which is a big deal. Scares a lot of people. States like Louisiana are going to require this. And it can obviously cause some friction. I do know a gentleman named Devin Robinson who's really smart. He's from the Collective Genius Network. He teaches something called, I can't remember what it is, but it's basically like you buy the property on owner finance. Yeah, I agree, Zach. Attorney in fact with no notary works like a charm. That's the ideal thing, right? In my opinion, because it covers most MLS spaces. And we'll talk through placement here in a second. But yeah, totally agree. So Devin Robinson teaches, you can basically buy it on either owner finance or contract for deed. Ben, thank you so much. It's called the installment method. If you want to look that up, my business partner, Ben, just texted it to me and I've got a MacBook. So I saw it pop up. You rock, brother. Thank you. The installment method, if you want to check it out, he might have a course on it even. I haven't been through it. Yeah, Chris, similar to Innovation. Casey, thanks, brother. Good to see you, man. Sweet. So that's the paperwork. And would you guys want, again, I'm always hesitant to share like samples of paperwork. I can find a couple and put them together so you have some samples if you want them. I think maybe I'll do like a mini module in the school community. Do you guys want the paperwork? Comment paperwork if you would want me to include some samples of paperwork for you all. Chris said, yes, please. All right, I'll put some stuff together. Don't rush me. That one might take me a little bit longer to get together than some of the stuff I've already got in-house, but I know I've got assignment and marketing clauses and attorney in fact somewhere. I'm not sure if I got a power of attorney. Please just don't take it as legal advice and don't blame me if things go sideways. Okay. Do your own homework, hire your own attorneys, do what you got to do. Okay. So third, we're going to talk about placement. Okay. And again, we place this stuff in a couple different areas, right? Our top places to get stuff sold historically has been MLS, right? So getting it listed on the MLS. Facebook Marketplace actually has picked up for us in 2024. We sold a couple properties with land.com, just a handful, but enough that we keep the subscription. Neighbors. So we cold call neighbors in the area. And those are our like 4 biggest ones to get properties sold. We've done some other stuff, but those have been our best. For placement today, I really just want to focus on MLS. You can throw them up on Facebook Marketplace, throw them up on land.com. You'll get leads. We'll talk a little bit about sales process on the back end when we're talking about operations of how I manage leads if I'm doing this in-house. But I'll get to that a little bit later. Right now, I want to focus on placement. Okay. So for placing this on the MLS, we've got 2 options in my brain. The first one is a flat fee MLS provider, right? So think Baycom.com, Brokerlist.com, Freedom List maybe. What's that one in Colorado we've used, Ben? I can't remember, but there's a couple flat fee MLS sites out there. Honestly, when we're working in a new area, I just Google flat fee MLS Colorado, flat fee MLS Mississippi, whatever you're doing, flat fee MLS North Carolina, and you'll find them pretty high up in the rankings, right? And then honestly, so here's where it gets kind of easy to start implementing this stuff is you're asking questions like, well, if I do this, how do I know if I can get in on this MLS, on this site, right? Here's what I do. Get on, search, flat fee MLS Colorado. You're going to get, Devin says Homecoin. You're going to get Homecoin to pop up. I'm going to reach out to their support team and say, hey, Homecoin support, my name's Ajay. I do deals. I have marketable interest for a property that I'm looking to sell. Can I ask what paperwork do you require for me to get a property up on your site? So instead of trying to do guesswork and get some paperwork signed and then see where you can fit it in the puzzle, go straight to the end puzzle, whatever decision maker, and ask them, what do you want to see? What do you want to see? And they'll tell you because they want your business, right? So they'll tell you what they want to see. And then you just use that in your contracts and you can list it somewhere after, right? So some benefits of using flat fee MLS providers. We'll talk about realtors after. I'm going to go through some benefits and costs of flat fee. So, benefit number 1 is it's low cost. A lot of flat fee providers are like $100 to $300, depending on different features and areas and all that type of stuff. There's costs from the local MLSs a lot of times. So, they've got to cover their costs in the least. There's a lot of times no commission. There are some flat fee MLS providers that require a commission. I don't love that. That's not my favorite way to do that. The whole point of, flat fee, in my opinion, is not paying a commission, but whatever. And there's little friction generally, right? People aren't asking me a ton of questions. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. I'm going to be honest. I'm a visionary and CEO, and my amazing salesperson, Taylor, does a lot of this work now. And so I haven't had to fill one of these out in years. But generally speaking, there's pretty low friction. Now, here's some costs, right? The leads a lot of times don't go anywhere. And when I say lead, I mean, guys, you throw up a flat fee MLS listing and it sits and some buyer or some agent calls the phone number on there and it just disappears. We don't get those leads. Somebody texts that phone number, disappears, right? Anytime it does get through, I can't remember who I was just talking about this with, but anytime a lead does get through all those hoops, they're like, oh my God, I had to jump through so many hoops to get to you. The good news is they probably got an offer in hand or a pretty serious buyer, right? The bad news is, man, I probably could have found one a lot sooner if I had those leads coming into my pipeline, right? So that's not my favorite. Like, I want my leads in this market, especially if I'm managing a sale, a disposition in-house, and I gave a seller my word that I was going to try to get this property moved, right? Now, if it is in-house, it means I need to manage a process in-house. I need a process for those leads. How often do I reach out to them? What do I say to them, right? And I have some of that stuff I'm going to share with you guys. I've got an SOP on Dispo. I've got a script for buyers. If you guys would be interested in that, comment script, and I'll make sure to include it in the modules in the school. But I've got all that stuff. You guys can see what we've done, what's worked, all that type of stuff. But those are some costs and benefits of placing it on a flat fee MLS provider, right? The next one there is working with realtors, okay? Now, it is really similar from the sense of how do I find a realtor that's, going to list a double closing? I'm going to do a couple of things, right? The first one is reach out to my network, right? I'm going to reach out to my network. Hey, does anybody have any investor-friendly realtors that are okay listing a property where I have an assignment marketing clause? Honor those relationships. Realtors that do that, I really don't want to burn them. So I want to make sure they fully understand what I'm doing. I want to be extremely transparent with them. I'll show them any documents they want to see, especially if I do repeat business with them on a lot of flips. Okay. But I'd ask my network. I ask for referrals of agents. And then I just talk to the agents that I'd already work with and ask if they would do it, or if they know other agents that would, or if their brokerages would, right? And a lot of times if they don't know, they've got to chat with their broker. That's an objection. Try to chat with their broker, see what they want, see what legal risk they're trying to protect themselves from and how you can work with them, right? And say, hey, what paperwork would you need to see for you to be comfortable with this, right? Again, I don't need to reinvent the wheel and be like, is this okay? Is this okay? What if I include this? Is this okay? Just ask them. They'll tell you because they want your business, okay? Benefits of working with realtors is they're going to pay for photos. They're going to manage the listing. The leads will come in. And oftentimes realtors have buyers, right? And it's outsourced, right? So instead of me having to manage sales and dispositions in-house, I get to outsource that entire function to a realtor. The caveat is you need to make sure it's a good realtor, like our realtor, Valerie, who actually calls the leads and picks up and hits them and all that type of stuff, right? I need to work with somebody who I know is picking up the phone and talking to leads when they come in, making sure contracts get to the finish line, right? So they pay for all that stuff on the front end, so there's less risk, again, which is also why I want to be super transparent with them, because I don't want them wasting a bunch of money and time on something where I've got 45 days to find a buyer, right? That sucks. Now, in terms of costs, you got to be mindful in a literal cost. You've got a 6% commission on the top line. So you can imagine if you're buying at 75 and you already factor in $5,000 of costs, right? You add an additional 3% of margin to that buyer lead, and that eats 3,000 more bucks of your margin. So if I'm at 75, it's worth 100. Even if I get an offer at 100, I got to subtract out like $8,000. I'm at 92 to 75, right? We're getting thin here. That's if I get an offer at asking price. So you got to be mindful when you're working with an agent. 6% commission off the top line when you aren't doubling your money means their fee can eat a lot of your margin very quickly, which I'm okay doing if I have good margin, they're working fast, they're going to get the leads, right? So yeah, I'm okay doing that, but you got to be mindful of it. Make sure you have the margin, make sure you don't lose money, right? So just do your math, be smart, all that type of jazz. Again, back to flat fee. I will say, like, not every deal comes from a realtor. So I don't always need to pay that 3% buyer fee. We factor it in because about half of them do, but not all of them do. Okay. So I mentioned this before. I'll mention it again. Our top places to get things sold. Number 1 have been MLS. Number 2 have been Facebook Marketplace. 3 land.com and 4 neighbors. Okay. Those have been good ones for us. Now guys, I can't believe we're 50 minutes into this. I'm going to start getting into some operations. This is the third piece. I see there's almost 40 people here with us. I would love it if you could stay till the end. I probably got about 20 minutes left. If you can stay till the end, because I got a really cool announcement for folks that want to work with me and my team. Okay, so high level, let's talk through some operations. Okay. Strategies to get this stuff sold. High level, the 2 biggest things I want you paying attention to are price and pipeline management. Price and pipeline management. Price and pipeline management. First, we're going to start talking about pricing, okay? There are still hot buyers out there today. It's not 2021. That's okay. There are still buyers out there today with cash, a lot more with financing, a lot more than want owner finance, more and more liquidity pools come into land though, and there's more ways to exit that stuff. So my question becomes, how cheap do I need to make this property in order to move it? Example, if we did price reductions on all of our inventory right now down to 20% of market value. So every $100,000 property I've got in my inventory, I drop down to 20%. How fast do you think that would move if that was all 20K property? Pretty freaking fast, right? So I want to find the balance of offering a discount and getting a property moved fast, right? So honestly, if I'm locking a property up at 75 grand, it's worth 100. Like, I know if I drop it down to 85, that thing's probably going to move in less than 30 days, right? The thing is, obviously that doesn't happen every time. Obviously there's seasons and stuff. It's sometimes really hot. Sometimes it's holidays, but honestly, we sell properties when it's hot. We sell properties on holidays. Like, I don't know. There's always people looking in some capacity because people may be leaving home and this might be home for some people to be coming too, right? So, the thing with double closings that you need to be mindful of is your constraint is time. So we need to be able to find buyers fast. We are constantly working against price versus time. So for me to want to do double closings, I just need a good amount of margin, guys. I'm not locking stuff up with 6K in margin and it's worth 150,000 bucks. Like, that's a losing bet, right? So again, I really want to try to lock stuff up, probably 65, maybe 70% of market value to make sure I've got margin. The exception would maybe be in some more liquid types of land, like infill lots that I know I'm going to get 30 grand from a builder. So yeah, I'm locking it up at 24, but I've got a buyer in mind. So it's a quick 5, 6K fee, right? I've done some of those. I know plenty of my friends have. So it works. Okay. Now let's talk some pipeline management for a second. Okay. Pipeline management. I see a ton of people commented script. So I'm going to make sure I get my script uploaded in that training. I'll put together a whole module that includes this video plus a lot of the resources I've talked about here today. And honestly, I'm asking you guys to comment this so I can come back and see everything I promised you. So I really appreciate you guys when you drop those comments to keep me accountable and make sure I can get that stuff to you. Okay. So with my discount philosophy, or excuse me, with my pipeline management, leads come in, right? And if I'm managing this in-house, so we're going to talk about both managing this in-house and with realtors. If I'm managing this in-house, my goal is to qualify leads as quick as possible and then get them on the dirt. Okay. Those are two big buckets. I think the third biggest bucket would be to get a contract, right? So qualify, get them on the dirt, get a contract. I got to come up with some good acronyms or some good alliteration for that. I don't have any right now. Okay. When I talk qualification, and this stuff is in the script, when I talk qualification, what this looks like typically is, hey, like how long have you been looking at property? How soon are you wanting to buy? I want to see how serious they are, right? Is it just, oh, it caught my eye today? I don't know. When I feel like it sometime in the next year, year and a half, 2 years, those guys never buy, right? Versus, oh, well, we're trying to move in the next like 3 months. So we're looking for something right now. We've got a pre-approval on bank. We've got cash. We're ready to go, right? And that's the second piece there is financing. Do they already have a pre-approval with a bank? If not, you should proactively reach out to banks in the area to connect them. We've done that time and time again, and it has been very successful. The bankers love you and move faster for you. The retail buyers are moving quicker. We have all the parties' information, so I can project manage that stuff way faster than I can if I don't know a banker or don't know somebody, right? So understand their financing plan and be able to connect the dots for them. Like we're supposed to be deal makers. We got to move stuff quick. Okay. The last piece about qualification here that I want to be mindful of is decision makers. If I'm just talking to a wife and the husband's the ultimate decision maker, I'm just talking to a husband and the wife's the decision maker, get them all on the phone, get them all on the same page, ask them why she didn't like it, ask them why he didn't like it, right? That's all qualification. Once they're qualified, book an appointment to get on the dirt. And that's honestly one of the biggest lessons I've learned from my good friend Anshul Sharma. We share a last name. We're not related to my knowledge, but that guy's wicked smart. Love him to death. I think he's got his own Facebook group too. You should totally check it out. But he's a super smart guy that taught me to get people on the dirt as fast as possible. And if you can set an appointment for it, much higher odds of them showing, right? So you think about from a sales process perspective, there's this concept of a show rate. How many people that told me they were going to show up actually show up? How many people that say they're going to walk the dirt will? The odds are a lot higher if they've got a day and time on their calendar. Is it perfect? No. But again, my philosophy with acquisitions for anybody that's been around has always been, how do I boost the odds of a probability of a lead doing business with me? On Dispo, same jazz, y'all, same jazz. So I get them on the dirt and I say, hey, just so you know, Janet, we've been getting tons of outreach on this. I just want to make sure when you get out to the dirt, you're the only person there. When you get out to the property, there's nobody else out there with you. So let me ask, is Saturday or Sunday better for y'all? Well, Saturday is okay. Morning or afternoon? Morning. How's 10 a.m.? 10 a.m. is good. Okay, great. If it's not, play the game until you can really get in there. Thanks, Devin. That means a lot, man. I put a lot of work into this training. So I appreciate you saying that. I'm trying to get into some nitty gritty here. So sweet. Now, after they've gotten on the dirt, I want to figure out what their objections are, right? So they're either ready to buy or they've got an objection, right? Here's an example. Somebody goes and visits. They told me they got cash. They're ready to go. They're ready to buy in the next month. I'm like, okay, sweet. They get out there and then they ghost me. I'm like, crap. So now I use a new phone number and I'm going to quadruple dial the lead to get back on the phone with them. And I'm going to say, hey, John, like, you know, you mentioned you were super hot, you were ready to go, and then you visited and you stopped contacting me. Can I ask, like, what happened, right? Honestly, man, 45 minutes away from my work. Like, really? Okay. And that's important to you. Is that a big deal or a little deal? Is that commute a big deal to you? Yeah, it's a huge deal. Okay. So, I mean, let me ask, you mentioned you were hoping to get your dream property in the next month. Is this property your dream property at any price, or is this a total deal killer? Are we done? You know, just hit them with it. Make sure, figure out where the lead is, right? But that was one we had to face that sucked because this guy was ready to buy pretty much our entire double close project originally at a ton of money. And then they got cold feet and they had like 600K in cash. And I was like, no, right? But I can't move a property, unfortunately. I can discount it. I can only focus on what I can control, but figure out if there's something they can't control. Like one we get a lot is clearing. And I'm like, okay, do you just want it cleared or are you worried about the money for clearing? The money. Okay, well, you're doing financing. Can I give you a concession at the closing table? Can I give you $5,000? Can I give you 10 grand? That's a solvable problem, guys. And like in this business, getting our money back is so important. So if there are solvable problems, let's friggin' solve them. Okay. Next is title company. Let's start talking about title companies because this is a question I get a lot from people. And we are getting towards the end of this training. I've got title companies, some contract questions, and then transactional funding in my notes. Oh, and then working with offers when they come in. Okay, and cancellation. All right, guys, we might have a little bit more to talk about, but I want to make sure we're still hitting this hard. And like I said, I got a big announcement at the end. So if you can stay till the end, I'll try to keep going through this as quick as I can. I actually get complaints from a lot of people because I talk too fast when I teach. I have a lot of people tell me they have to listen to my podcast at 1x speed instead of their usual like 1.25 or 1.5. So I'm trying not to talk any faster. I actually try to slow myself down when I teach, and it's hard for me. This stuff excites me. I'm having fun. So sorry, not sorry. I don't know. Keep up. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's talk title companies. So first and foremost, let's talk about how to find them. My good friend, Seth Williams, he is freaking awesome. I love Seth. He actually put together this resource. It's investor-friendly title companies and closing agents. Now, I don't know whether all of these are people that do double closings. I don't know what investor friendly means necessarily in this. It might say in the article, but I grabbed the link ahead of time and I just dropped it in the comments. Issa said caffeine rush. Yeah, brother, always. And so there's a list of them in a lot of states, but generally speaking, if I'm trying to find a title company, right, I'm going to check in a couple of areas. First one, go check that list. Second one, ask your realtors in the area, especially if they know what you're doing. Hey, do you have a realtor that's investor friendly that does double closings, assignments, whatever, right? And then call them before you put escrow in them. Referrals are great, but introduce yourself. Hey, Mr. Title Company, my name's Ajay. I'm a real estate investor. I'm actually based in Dallas. You came as a super high referral from my buddy John, who said you guys are the best in the business. I'm calling because we're doing a bit of an investor type deal. You guys work with a lot of real estate investors? Yeah, we do. Okay. Can I ask, we're doing one right now where we have a buyer and a seller lined up in the same day. So we're doing like a same day closing, right? Again, try to speak to them in language they'll understand. We need to think about this from their frame. We use our language a lot of like double closings, simultaneous closings, right? Try to like use layman's terms where they understand it. Hey, do you do like same day closings for buyers and sellers if I have that all lined up, right? If they say yes, yeah, we do that all the time. Like, okay, awesome. And then can I ask then, so if I have the buyer lined up I have my AB transaction, I have my BC transaction, am I allowed to use the funding from my BC transaction to fund my AB transaction, or do I need to come in with separate funds? Just ask, guys. Ask the question, and they'll tell you whether they do C to A funding, okay? I call it C to A funding. The title company might not, so you need to explain it that way, okay? And so it's really important. A question I got from Katie Damaris in the chat was, hey, when buyers come in, they want a different title company. What do you do? Guys, I call that a deal killer. So many deals fall apart at title because we use their title company that has a different relationship with them than us. And so I just draw a hard line in the sand now. We used to work with other people's title companies and we just tell them, not going to work. If you want to do business with us, sorry, your offer's dead in the water if you can't do it. We'll pay for the closing fees. I'll happily pay the closing costs, but you may not use your own title company, right? And so we just draw a hard line in the sand. We tell them it's a non-negotiable because our title company knows us. We worked hard on this deal. I'm not going to let it blow up because an attorney sucks, a title company sucks, whatever. This is a little different if you're in attorney states like Georgia and North Carolina, because I know split closings aren't uncommon. It just gets really tough with double closings. So again, I would say their attorney can advise them, but they're not handling the closing. Escrow needs to be handled out of our title company or attorney regardless, okay? If you try to split it, stuff's going to blow up, right? Contract. I got a question from Blake about, are we using EMD at all in these? So man, short answer is it depends. All right. On an acquisition contract, if we're pretty serious about the deal, we'll include 500 or $1,000. We make it fully refundable in our acquisition contract. I'm writing the contract, man. I'm going to make this advantageous to me, right? A lot of times we just don't include it. There's some risk there of it not being enforceable by law. Again, I'm not an attorney, but my understanding is there's not consideration if you don't have real dollars in an escrow account, right? On the disposition side, on my selling of my property, I make it non-refundable as soon as possible, but I want to be ethical about it, right? So, hey, I'm going to make probably at least $1,000 or 1%, whichever is bigger, right? Whichever number is bigger. Hey, I need $1,000 in EMD. Maybe you have 30 days due diligence, and after that, it becomes non-refundable. Be reasonable, be like a nice person, right? But that's a piece of this that we like to include. Again, not a huge sticking point. I don't want it to kill a deal, but that's something we're looking at pretty regularly. Next, people asked about transactional funding and how it works. Okay, so if you need funding for your A to B transaction, what does a transactional funder look for? Where do I find those? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about what they look like. What we have seen historically, they come in all shapes and sizes, but the companies we work with for transactional funding, they typically charge us about a 1% wire fee, meaning like not a wire fee, sorry, a 1% fee of their capital required. So if I needed $100,000 for transactional funding, they are going to charge me a fee of $1,000. It's about 1% of the money. Okay. They're also usually going to add some type of admin cost in there of somewhere between 200 and 500 bucks. It depends. Some do it a little different where they've got some sliding scales on fees, but generally speaking, it should be about 1% of the acquisition and a couple $100 in admin fee. Okay. A resource we've used historically is doubleclose.com. I think the owner is a member of CG. I've never chatted with them personally. My team always chats with Kelsey on their team directly, and Kelsey's been awesome in terms of just fast communication. That's a non-negotiable for us. We need people to be dependable. That's one of our core values at our company. And so that's what transactional funding looks like. How we find them, I just go to doubleclose.com. They do land. Now, a transactional funder is going to require the contracts come on the same day. The end buyer's money comes in a day early. They're going to need to see the paperwork on both sides. So there are some admin requests. There are some logistical hoops you need to jump through. Just ask them what they are and work with them. They're really not that complicated, right? We do them all the time. Next, guys, I've just got 2 small points here left. So if you're still here with us, please stay till the end. Again, I've got a cool announcement I'm really excited about. But once an offer comes in, offers that come in, offers, baby offers, okay? We love money, money, money. Let's talk about how to work with buyers directly. Let's talk about how to work with buyers agents, okay? Buyers directly, a lead comes in. I'm running them through the same funnel we ran through before, right? And they make an offer. I'm just going to have a conversation with them. And we use a lot of the same negotiation tactics that we use with our acquisitions, right? So I'm usually just going to loop them and generally speaking, hey, hey, I just saw your offer come in. I have to ask, I mean, is that the absolute highest you guys can come in at, right? And if they hesitate or say no, sweet, there's room. I recommend at least attempting a counter most of the time. We won't in certain circumstances, but most of the time we're going to go ahead and counter. The worst they say is no. There's only one instance I've ever seen a counter happen and then the buyer completely just backs out. And it was right after a buddy of mine who a lot of you know, Mike Balcom, actually called me one morning. He was like, hey, I just got this offer on a property. It's a crap offer, but honestly, like I got in so cheap. I don't mind getting the cash back, whatever. And I'm like, dude, I would at least counter. I mean, worst that happens is this guy says no and the offer's still on the table, right? And he's like, yeah, you're right. He counters and then the guy walks and buys another property. And I'm like, okay, I gave you bad advice here. So I say that to say use at your own discretion. But on our team, we try to counter. We loop if we can, if we're talking to the buyer directly, and just ask them, hey, is that the most you can do? If they hesitate or say no, I'm like, great, we got some margin here. Now, what we like to do is if you have multiple people involved, like our sales manager, Taylor, will be like, hey, the owners really want to see it at this price. Do you think that's possible? Right? Hey, I think we're looking closer to here. Is that attainable? Right? So just have the conversation. But remember, people, once they made an offer, they like the property. So they're going to act a little bit more in scarcity. You can let them know if you have another offer on the table. I don't like fabricating it, but you can let them know, hey, we did get another offer. And you can tell them, depending on how transparent you want to be, of like, here's where it came in. I'll be honest, I like your terms better because you're cash, but for our team to accept yours versus theirs, here's where it needs to be. And then you just shut up, right? Shut up on negotiations. Serves you really well. On the flip side, let's talk buyers agents, right? Agent comes in with an offer. I'm even more transparent with them if I have other offers on the table. Hey, I've got 2 more offers on the table. How serious is your buyer? Right? Boom, just hit them with it. Generally speaking, agents are going to tell you pretty quickly if they have some money to work with. And because honestly, the buyer agent wants to get the deal done and make a commission as well, right? Hey, I've got other offers on the table. We were actually about to accept it before this one came in. The terms on that one are more favorable. Can you change X, Y, and Z? Right? Can you show me a proof of funds? Where are you at here? Right? But just work with them. Now, I did see a question too of like, how do we explain to them that we're doing a double closing? We just keep it, again, super transparent. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Agent, just so you understand, we do not own the property yet. Because a lot of times they submit the offer based on the information in the CAD, right, at the county appraisal district. And so they pull that. Now you've got to tell them to correct that if they just never even called you or whatever. And so I just say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, just so you understand, Matt, just so you understand, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor, what we do is we've got this property under contract. We have not bought it yet, but by the time we sell it to you, it will be transferred from our company to your company. Okay, so we're in the process of buying it. While we're buying it, our seller has given us permission to market the property, right? So you can ask our title company about us. We do a lot of deals with them, but that's what that looks like. So I'm going to need to change that name in the seller line. Do you have any questions about that? Make sure they understand what you're doing, but that's how we keep it pretty matter of fact, right? All that stuff is true. So sweet. And if sometimes they ask for paperwork, I hate giving agents our paperwork, but if it's like our only offer and they're super stringent on it, fine, we can do it. Make sure you strike out your price. Make sure it's like blacked out so they can't see what you're locking it up for. Because again, people don't like us making money. So they get weird about that stuff. Okay. Last, but certainly not least is guys, let's talk about protecting your downside. I know I get questions all the time about cancellations. So, okay, let's say you need to cancel a property real quick. Sometimes we rush into canceling instead of just making a reoffer. And here's what I mean by that is let's say we get to a place, we had 90 days on the contract, we're 65 days in, I've got no offers on the property. Instead of just canceling, right? If I have a couple of leads that seem okay, I might just go back to the seller and I might ask, hey, it's taken us longer than we thought. Would you be willing to give us an additional 60 days? They can say no, right? But if I cancel, I make no money. If I ask again, I might make some, right? I only renegotiate price if I am certain I'm going to close. And here's what I mean by that. I am certain I'm going to close in 2 different ways. Number one is if I can buy it at a flip price. So say I think it's worth 100. I haven't gotten any buyers. I've discounted down to 80. Now I'm not even sure if it's worth 80, right? So I'm under contract at 70, but now I think it's probably worth 80. So I want to buy it at 40. I'm going to tell them, hey, we're going to need a price reduction of $30,000, right? They're either going to tell me to kick rocks. Sometimes they say yes. Alternatively, we will do a reoffer after we get a buyer contract. So let's say we have it locked up at 70, a buyer contract comes in at 75. Sounds like there's margin there, but the reality is there is not. There is not margin there when you pay realtor fees, when you pay closing costs, whatever else hits your desk. And so I might reoffer and be like, hey, we're going to need $10,000 price reduction. We can close in a week. Right. But I'm only going to do that when I have a buyer in hand or I know I can close on it myself. Okay. I don't really like jerking sellers around a ton. So we're either going to cancel or we're going to reoffer in a way that we know we can get this done, or we're just going to be transparent that we need more time. Okay. So, with that, guys, we are, what are we in? We're an hour and 12 in. I do want to announce to everybody something that we are getting started in. It's just in the beginning phase here, but I want to share with everybody something we've been working on because the community just seems like they need it. We've been testing this with a couple of people and we've gotten some deals done, but basically I want to do deals with y'all. Okay. I want to do deals with y'all. And here's what that looks like is me and Ben and our team at Assets for Acres. We've done tons of double closings. And so we are opening up our team to the community to do some deals with people. Now, what that's going to look like, what it looks like to JV with us, okay, is if you've got a lead on your desk where a seller has volunteered a price where you know it's closable, right? And you've got a minimum of a $30,000 spread on it, you can submit it to us, and I'll include some information on how to submit that link here in a second. You can submit it to us. Our team will look at it and let you know how it goes, right? We're going to call, we're going to try to lock it up. We're going to get it listed. We're going to try to find a buyer. When we make money, we both get paid out at HUD. Okay. So you guys just submit leads to us that you think are hot and ready for double closing. So guys, I taught you everything I know in 75 minutes about this business model. You have the information. You can go out. You can do this yourself. If you don't have the bandwidth, if you don't have the team, if you just don't like the risk of this strategy, I am just giving you an opportunity to work with me and work with our team and do deals with Assets for Acres. You don't need to. Not everybody here should. There's probably a few people out here this would benefit, right? We're really good at closing. We got bandwidth and staff and information to get stuff dispoed, okay? So I'm going to drop a form here in a second. Let me show you exactly what the numbers look like to partner with us. I am going to share my screen in a second and see if I can pull this up. Let's see here. Bang. All right. You guys can see this, this fun little JPEG here, right? So this is a fun little graphic Kaylee threw up. We threw it together today, so apologies on it not being super polished. That's on me. But basically, you submit a lead to us that you think is closable, okay? We're going to do the acquisition. We're going to run the TC. We're going to do the disposition, which is basically the entire business, in my opinion, right? So we're running the acquisition, the TC, the dispo. We're finding a buyer. We're negotiating on both fronts. We're getting the deal done. We're doing all the strategies we talked to you about. We're taking the risk to get it listed. When we close it, right? This is what splits look like. We as Assets for Acres get 60%, you get 40. You might say, well, dude, that's a lot. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, right? I looked at this and I said, I'm just not excited to do this at any other level. I've had some people tell me I could go as high as 80-20, and I just didn't feel like that was fair. I wanted people to make money that were doing business with us. I say minimum 30K spread. So if it's a $100,000 deal, lock it up at 70 grand, or you get a verbal at 70 grand. We want leads, not contracts. Okay. Cause there's just too much stickiness. Once there's contracts, send us leads. We'll close them on our terms and get it done. Right. There's a continuity piece there too. On the soft costs, either one of us can invest in them. And when I say soft costs, droners, surveys, miscellaneous fees, if we have to pay for title, whoever invests that, you get 2 times your money back. Okay. That can be you. That can be me. We can split it 50-50. I don't care. Right. But you get twice your money back that you risked. Because truthfully, guys, something I didn't mention about double closings is if you're planning this in your 2024, only about 65% of them get to the closing table. So if I lock up 10 double closings, I'm going to finish line, 6 or 7 of those. Right. So there's some risk in taking those soft costs. So I want whoever takes that risk to get rewarded. You're welcome to do it. I'm welcome to do it. We get our money back at closing. Okay. You just submit leads and you sit back, right? We'll do everything else. When we get it done, we'll communicate with you and your team and let you know exactly where that's at. So with that, I'm going to grab that form and drop it in the comments for you guys to see. But while I'm grabbing that, I would love to take any questions you guys have. I would love to take any questions. Let's see. You guys have any questions at all? Nobody has any questions? Chris said good stuff, Ajay. Sweet, man. And I am grabbing this Google form for anybody that's interested in submitting leads to us. Ben is grabbing that link for me right now. So you're welcome to just drop it in the comments as well. So Ben's my business partner. If you guys don't know him, he rocks. Here's some good questions. Matt says, if we're in the process of getting a contract signed, what would moving it over to a JV process look like? So Matt, if you had a contract you were in the process of, basically you would just tell your seller, hey, we've got a sister company that's going to be taking this over. They're, and basically just do a warm handoff, right? What I've done with some people in the past is we even 3-way phone call. So I would submit the lead and include that in the notes. And if you wanted us to take a look at it and work it, we'll figure it out, right? If we don't get it under contract, how do we know you won't steal it from us? George, you don't. You don't. You got to trust me here a little bit. And I'll be honest, I don't know how long you've been a part of the community, but if that's a concern of yours, I would encourage you to not submit anything. I would say you should probably just take all the information from the training and do it yourself, man. If that's a thought that's popping into your head, we're probably not a good fit to work together, unfortunately. So we only want to work with people that know us and trust us. If you don't trust us, no worries. That's totally fine. I get it. I'm some random person on the internet. I get it. But please just work your own deals, man. I don't need to do this. Ben and I have plenty of deals for us to do. We just like doing double closings and figured this would be a good asset to the community because it's stuff people have been asking for a while. So no worries, but great question. Carl says, not a question, just a comment. Always super impressed with how much you give away in just one of these chats. Hey, I appreciate that, Carl. Thanks so much, man. I really try my best here. Janet says, such a good class. Appreciate it. Chris says, I have a property you can look at. Sweet, Chris. We're dropping the link here in just a second. I think I've got a link here. I just want to make sure it's the right one before I drop it. What does this button do? Oh, bang. Here we go. So I'm going to shorten the URL, copy this, and I will drop it right now. Burtis, I appreciate that, man. I all I can ask is that people that, absorb the content, use this, better your businesses, feed your families. Like I try to give away as much as I can for free. That's why I spun up the free course. Obviously, I can't make my time free. I mean, I do when I give away these trainings and let people do some Q&A, but if you want to coach with me and get some sales training, I got to charge for my time, unfortunately, but I try to make information free. I try to give stuff away. And so that's the biggest compliment anyone could give me. And I really appreciate that. Keyshawn, you're welcome, man. It's been great seeing you around the community more. Matt says, what keeps buyers agents from trying to for you? That's a great question, man. I'm not going to lie to you. It has happened, not in our deals, but I've heard of a couple of people that that has happened. I threatened to turn them in. I would totally threaten to turn them in. Just like, hey, I'm going to turn you into your broker and report you. And they might lose their license over stuff like that. So skipping people involved in deals is a big no-no. And I would tell them that, right? But I have heard it happen. I can't tell you it won't. Which is also why we don't like to give that to them. Like, it doesn't really matter. Hey, we're going through title. You're going to get title insurance. Everyone's going to be safe here. Like, I just, and you know what? You might even tell them that. Be like, hey, here's what I don't want. Tell them a third-party story. In the past, what we've done is when agents reach out to us, they ask for that information. And I'm always kind of weary of giving it to them because this one time, little Miss Sally Realtor took it, went behind our back directly to the current owner and cut us out of the deal. Which, listen, I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor, people probably try to cut you out of deals all the time. So you totally understand how annoying it is when you put a bunch of work in and getting, a deal done and somebody tries to cut you out. So I just don't want that to happen. What do you think about that? And you'll get a vibe check real quick on where they're at, but when you tell a third-party story, it doesn't make it seem like you're accusing them, right? Hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little scared and here's why, right? You tell a third-party story. We do that a lot with our objection training too. Trevor says on flat fee MLS listings, what did you mean the leads disappear? Can you clarify that a little more? For sure, Trevor. That's a great question. So when you list with flat fee, you get the listing on Zillow and you're going to get some guy's name and phone number. There's always a realtor's name and phone number on there, right? That name and phone number that's typically listed is somebody random. I don't exactly know how it works at the flat fee place. And it depends on who you're using. Every state, every county, every flat fee service provider is different. What I can tell you is generally speaking, the names and phone numbers that are listed on there don't actually take those calls or those text messages. Maybe they receive them, but they don't do anything with them. They sure as heck don't forward it to me. I think the only flat fee MLS provider I know with it actually works in is Top Brokerage. My buddy Nico owns that one. We've done business with them. They're a little pricier, but they've got great customer service and they do let you put your own information into the MLS, I'm pretty sure. Double check me on that. What Trevor asked, any good flat fee on the listings that have premium customers? Okay, Chris, great question. So, at the end there, the Top Brokerage, my buddy Nico that owns that one, he really good customer service. Again, a little pricier, but really, really good customer service. So I like that guy a lot. They do good on people. Sean said, how do you know if a deal is a good double close candidate as opposed to a normal flip versus entitlement versus wholesale? So Sean, I would tell you, Holistically, you got to look for a couple of things here, right? Because I mentioned earlier, we've got 3 variables in every deal pretty much. We have price, we've got, timeline, and then we've got access. Okay. So generally speaking, if I can't monetize a deal with a flip, I don't even want to talk entitlements because that's a whole different can of worms. We've done them. They take a lot more work and energy and stuff. But take a property you would normally try to flip and say, okay, price is a little bit too high, but there's still good margin on this deal. And the seller is not a stickler about the timeline, right? If we can look at those 2 deals, we're ready to rock, basically. Roman said, love the JV idea. I've got a verbal on a 31K spread. Let's talk. Let's do it, man. I just dropped the Google form in here. So I need everybody to fill that out in the short. And then we'll figure out a way to, open up a communication channel. This is new, so please give us a little bit of grace as we're in the beta testing of it, of figuring out if we need to start an Airtable thing. Right now, we're just doing stuff on Google Sheets, and I can't imagine, 100 people reaching out to us with leads or anything. So holistically speaking, I'm sure we can just email or text or whatever to get a lot of this done. I'm a big fan of relational business. I want to do good with people, and I want to do business with people that I like, that like me, and we can rock. But these are all great questions, guys. So we're almost an hour and a half into this. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to talk with energy for an hour and a half, and my throat is starting to get just very dry here. So if I don't see any other questions, I'm probably going to jump here in a second. But guys, you have been such a great group of folks to chat with. I really hope, will you just tell me, was this valuable for you? Will you please just drop like a yes in the chat if this was like good value for you, if this is something that was helpful? Because I get a lot of requests on double close training. I had 40 people comment on that one post, and I just figured, you know what, let me just teach everything I know in one go. So, okay, sweet. That makes me feel really good. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Matt, other Matt, Devin, Chris, appreciate it, guys. Awesome. Sweet, guys. Well, hey, everybody have a great rest of your week. Let's go close some deals. If you want to do some business together, I am super open to do some deals, but let's rock. Appreciate y'all. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.